And just remember this, mark this down if you mark anything down today. Write down or refresh yourself of the best time that you had. Write down and refresh yourself of the best times you've had. Okay? The technique here is when you get alone and you're able to do this, especially when you're laying down, see how long you can think about that and start realizing how that makes you feel as you put yourself more into that space. You bring that space around you, like throw it like an IMAX screen around you, and you put yourself into that moment of the best time that you ever had. Because the reality also is because of the Ina's direction of the consciousness, it actually only starts highlighting much of what you've done wrong in the bad situations that you've had. Okay. And I want to speak to this very directly because this has a lot to do with the construct. If those want to learn, if you want to learn how to actually move around your construct of your consciousness, you have to realize that every time that you've got into a situation that you would call quote unquote bad situation, every single thing that is formed is grown from what we call and becomes what we call energy. Okay. So meaning that the bad situation was an actual energy. And just like any other energy, it's going to try to survive. That's the first thing I want you to understand. Now, I'll repeat this again. When you get into any situation that it causes a strong energy signature, like you're scared, you're startled, you're hurt, any of those things, energy is created, okay? And just like any other energy, energy is pre-wired with preservation. It wants to preserve itself. It wants to glow as long as possible. It does not want to die. And the only way that it can actually continue to live, because day after day, when time and space are created between you and that experience, it becomes more and more of a fractured code, like a pixelated experience. It's like taking a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy until after a while, you only have these core energy, these decrepit core energy signatures left that actually bear stark, really resemblance to what even happened. But based on how the consciousness functions, the reason why it won't let it go is because it's also in fear that if it lets it go, the consciousness will forget that it ever happened, thus making you prone to it happening again. And this is why I was saying in the ancient times when they talked about these brains, one of the creator beings said, and we gave them our brain. So they can't really get too far because our brains can't go that far. Our minds can't go that far. What was it about those beings' mind that didn't allow them to go that far? It was that. Many of the beings like the lizards, etc., the lizard state of consciousness, once something happens, it will never forget that. This is also what people can call holding grudges. It will never forget that. And it will never go over there again. It will keep thinking about that. It'll associate that with other things, and it'll start becoming scared and startled from everything. So you see, this is the maze in itself. These are the matrices that we are walking through and going beyond and getting keys to the doors because we understand how they function. Because of course you're not going to let it happen again. Of course, you're going to be more wise. Even if you removed it from your consciousness, it can't be completely removed. It'll be always there. But with you holding on to it in fear that it would happen again, it gives it the life as if it was just new again. Okay. And this is the construct of how the brain is functioning and how the minds are functioning. So what I'm also getting at here is I'm getting at that once we start condensing these times in our consciousness that were great times we had a good time. And first of all, you'll peep your mind that it likes to seem to bring up the bad times for the reason that I just explained to you. The whole wheel seems to be full of negative things that could happen and what's going on wrong and what we don't like and all this kind of stuff. But we never shifted consciousness into all the great times that we had, right? Because that's the other direction. So that's the direction you need to drive in. You got to start practicing that, because once you get back into that space, because actually the great times, those energy signatures which wanted to survive are stronger than the ones that are the negative, what you would call the negative energy signatures. And also, you've used so much of the negative energy signatures, they actually don't have as much power anymore anyway. They're old. So to tap back into, that's the state of mind that you can always return to, that I was talking about in the other conversation, to tap back into this state of consciousness where you were having a great time, it changes the being. It literally, from the word change, if you ever were thinking, how can you change yourself? This is how you change yourself, because you go into that space and you start teaching yourself how to do this. This is the trance that you can put on yourself. See, because we talk about the trances are always going on. I think that was Dominic that also brought that up, that pretty much everything has some level of a trance to it. So it's really now more of, what trance do you want to actually be in? Because when you really understand it, what it really says is that psychologically, because we won't bring metaphysics into this right now, but psychologically, you can actually manipulate yourself to do anything. And I mentioned that before, and it seemed to not have the correct context that I used the word manipulate. But what I was actually saying in a nutshell is that the reason why psychology is so powerful is not just because it can be used to manipulate others. It's actually so powerful because you can use it to manipulate yourself. You can actually convince yourself to do anything if you know your way around your own consciousness.